All right, everyone. Thanks for waiting for a couple of minutes while we let some folks join. Thanks for joining our webinar on our Omnichannel Messaging API, which is Messente's latest messaging API. Let's go ahead and get started. I just want to introduce our presenters today for this webinar. First and foremost, we have Lauri Kinkar, who's our CEO. He'll be speaking to the vision and some of the things that we're doing with our messaging platform moving forward. And then we have Janos Romas, who is our CTO, the brains behind our API in this latest release. And I am Yuri Mikichenko, the head of marketing here. So to get started, wanted to just chat a little bit about what we're going to talk about. First, we want to go over what omnichannel messaging is to us, why we chose to pursue an omnichannel messaging API as well, and then why rich communication messaging makes sense for your business, when to use it, when it might be best to still use SMS. Also some road mapping on our platform, what's coming in future releases of our new API, as well as a demo and some technical information from Janos. Now, to take a step back in understanding why we decided to pursue an omnichannel messaging API, we want to look at the market, right? So over the last few years, there's been a proliferation of mobile messaging apps for mobile phones. We'll say roughly about over the last 5 years. Right, so this has created a lot more options for people to communicate, including businesses. A lot of these new messaging platforms like Viber, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger have opened up their platforms to businesses and are getting these people to have access to brands and businesses. The one thing to note, though, is that these different platforms don't create new audiences. There's a lot of overlap here, so at the end of the day, anyone that has a mobile phone already has access to SMS plus these other applications. So you're not creating new audiences; you're just having different options for the same audience to get to communicate with them. Interesting information from Mobile World Congress last year. GSMA noted that messaging has become the _1 use of mobile devices, which is one of the reasons we're pursuing a multi-channel approach to messaging rather than just one. Another thing to remember is that SMS still reigns king when it comes to reach. GSMA also reports that there's a bit over 5 billion unique subscribers or unique mobile subscribers. That means anyone with a mobile phone also has the capability to receive and send SMS messages. So regardless of where these applications are going, SMS is still the best way to reach mass amounts of people, right? But outside of that, we want to go into some of the actual reasons of pursuing an omnichannel platform, right? First and foremost, we want to give our clients the options to reach their clients in more than one way, right? And on top of that, it's rich communication and messaging that allows these businesses to be more creative when it comes to a call to action, as well as the content that they're presenting to their clients, right? But from my opinion, I think the most important thing is that as these messaging companies open up their public APIs to companies like us, it gives brands and businesses an opportunity to give their clients an option of how they want to be communicated with. So that means that you are able to tell your clients, hey, we will communicate in a way that you want us to communicate with you, whether it's Viber, whether it's SMS, or anything else that opens up in the near future. So what's our API capable of doing today? We've started out with Viber, and Lauri will go a little bit more into this here in a little bit. But with Viber, it's the idea of Viber and OTT platforms is that we want to supplement SMS where it makes sense, right? So not to replace SMS, but to fill the gaps of where SMS can't do some things. For example, SMS is constrained to 160 characters, while Viber can send 1,000 characters in the same message. On top of that, you can send images, and there's a branded logo in the message that's sent. And other than just using shortened links in SMS, the Viber platform allows you to add call to action buttons, whether it's for a marketing message or whether it's for a link that you want to redirect your client to a different website. Also in our API, there's automatic failover built into the system. While you still have to code the logic into the system so that it goes from Viber to SMS, and Jens will show us how that works here in a little bit. The automatic failure SMS is there. So if a message, a rich content message doesn't make it to a user, whether because they don't have a Viber account or because they weren't connected to Viber at that moment in time, there's a separate SMS-based message that's sent as well. And we have more platforms coming along the way, as well as RCS as it becomes more available. And I just wanted to point out that if you guys want to ask questions, go ahead and ask questions in the GoToWebinar questions panel. I'll be taking them and then I'll make note of them and we'll answer them towards the end of the webinar. But feel free to start asking questions in this box whenever you come up with the question. But now I want to hand it over to Laudy to get into more details on the whys, the hows, and the whats.
Yeah, thank you, Yuri, and hi from my side as well. Well, why did we build it, and what's the direction we're headed to? I think that well, for me, the very important thing I want to point out first is that the essence or the backbone of this API is the sequencing and the fallback mechanisms. So it creates capabilities to use different channels when businesses reach out to their customers, and whichever they might be. So the main idea here when we built this API was to build a communication tool that can handle any kind of a mix that a business chooses to use. And out of the box, it has Viber, but there will be other platforms integrated with it as well as we go. So the main idea why we built it is to give variety, and for us it's a step onwards from having an SMS messaging tool to a general messaging tool or a messaging API, because phone-to-phone communication or person-to-person, with obviously all of those chat platforms have been around for years, and but if we're talking about A to P or messages or conversations that go between organizations and their clients or their audience, then these platforms are just opening up for that kind of communication, and they can be all sort of embedded in this new API. One of the things that the API allows as well is a much more personal or a much more tailored type of reaching out to your audience. And by that I mean that there is always possibilities to segment your client list, to know which clients prefer to be contacted via Viber, for example, and then use Viber with a fallback to SMS for this particular group. For another group, use SMS only, or you could even do vice versa, use SMS and then fall back to Viber, if that makes sense. So I think that apart from being able to use different kinds of communication channels with different functionality, it gives you a possibility to make a very tailored approach. If I'm talking about the roadmap that we have, then we will definitely integrate new channels that will be available using this API. And but the focus for us will always be on the channels which are very reactive, the messaging which can be used to accompany business transactions, and because obviously there's a huge variety to choose from. So we are mainly talking about the things that we're keeping an eye on, obviously WhatsApp in the future. Currently there's no public API from their side yet. Also, interesting things are happening regarding Google's RCS, which Yuri mentioned, and it is essentially it's meant to work and it will work similarly to iMessage, how it works between iPhones. RCS will work between Android phones, so no specific apps needed to be installed. Just an out-of-the-box solution, and these developments are definitely very interesting for us. We'll keep an eye on those, and a bunch more, Telegram, Facebook Messenger, and such. And obviously, roadmap-wise, we have a lot to do to improve that API, which we're now unveiling even further, and that has to do with adding more statistics and reporting tools for the dashboard, and also more libraries for developers. So these all will come over time as we head out of beta. Another thing that I wanted to briefly touch upon are some business considerations that I would really advise for any business to take into account when choosing their mix of channels. And basically, my advice here would be not to decide on features alone. So you'd always have to consider the context, consider the message, consider the audience. And the reason for that is we in Messente, we don't see Viber or any chat apps as an upgrade to SMS, just because there's a lot more features available. There's the characters you can use in text. There's a lot more characters. But I think that every channel of communication is suited to certain types of conversations. So bear in mind that people don't use the most advanced featured channel for everything, and much like Yuri said, so everybody has access to all kinds of different channels. We're targeting the same people through Viber as we are through SMS. So if you have a visual component that you want to show, if you have a call to action button, and then maybe Viber would be the correct tool for you. If you need the uniformity, if you need the reach, then definitely SMS is worth considering still. And different channels always have different expectations tied to them as well. So if we're talking about any chat app, Viber or something else, then bear in mind that in the case of SMS, it's much more one way. Its nature is better suited for one-way communication, so reminders, alerts, and if you send out Viber messages, then I think that businesses should consider that Viber messages can, people expect to respond to those messages, again, depending on the context. So businesses should definitely be ready for these conversations and ready to handle these conversations, not only just from the technological standpoint. So an example where Viber might excel, or where you might consider Viber, using Viber is, for example, if you send a call to action to an existing user base, you have a visual component to include there, which SMS is not able to do. And through this call to action button, it's sort of like a campaign meant to commercialize something right away, and think repeated purchases or prolonging subscription, for example. So I think these things are important to take into account when choosing your channel. And before I give it over to Janos, maybe a few very practical things to keep in mind that have to do with commercial setup as well. So if you are going to explore the new API, then well, obviously the first step is to analyze your audience. That has to do with location as well, and in which markets Viber might have a different sized footprint, different amount of users. And then when setting it up, the process is approximately like this, that you'd have to have a sender ID, which we will register for you. The process takes about 2 weeks, so be ready for that. There are a couple of design assets if you choose to use them, visual components and such to prepare. So it takes a little bit more preparation from the business that's sending those messages out, and then figure out the fallback sequence and the content for each fallback tier separately. So there's a specific text and content for Viber, and if a fallback to SMS is triggered, so that content is 160 characters. It's going to be a little bit different. And obviously, from our side, you'll get full statistics about the delivery and the fallbacks which were triggered. So I think that this is going to be very interesting to study after your first pilot project. I guess that's it from me. So I guess Janos might be ready with a demo and how it works.
Hey everybody, I hope you can see my screen now. First, quickly, let's check where to actually find the documentation. So if you want to integrate the Omnichannel API on our main website, if you check from docs, you can see the Omnichannel API in the left-hand menu. So here you can have a quick introduction how to get the API's username and password, where to make the API calls, how the whole authentication works, what are the response codes, and how does the whole communication work. So here, this is like a very technical documentation that you can browse how it actually works out. So let's start with actual examples so that we can see how it actually works. First, let's imagine that we're like an airline company and we want to send notifications to our customers. So in this example, we're going to send an SMS that's defined in this scenario to one phone number from one sender, and we have defined a text here so that we can actually try it out and see what happens. On the left of my screen, you can see my phone screen. So if I send the messages to this number, they should appear here already. So let's try to see what happens if we send this. On the right-hand screen here, you can see the response from the Messente API, and you can already see that the message arrived. If we open this up, you can see that in my message content, I included a link. So the phone app conveniently allows me to view the link, but this is like actually just a plain text link in the SMS. So it's not as interactive as it might be. Checking from the lower of the screen, we can see that this is the delivery report part of Messente API. So what it does, if Messente sends an SMS or Viber message, it will tell to your systems that, okay, now we received this message and we actually try to deliver this. First delivery report tells us that the operator accepted the message, and then the next one is that the message was actually delivered. So let's try to make the same example using Viber message. So let's pick Viber with text. This is exactly the same using just a Viber channel. Let's see how it works. So on the right-hand screen, again, you can see the response from the API. And on the phone, first thing that you get if you receive a Viber message from a new contact, Viber will actually ask that, is this okay? So right now here we're going to say yes. And now you can see the same content. But using the same text with Viber, it doesn't really make sense because Viber has lots of new features. Now let's try to send the same thing with slightly more data. Now, in this example, I'm going to send the same text, but I'm going to include the image and the button as well. So let's see how this looks on the phone. We're going to send the message, and here you can see. Now you can already see the image that I provided in the image URL, and the button that allows you to update the flight information, for example. So this allows your customers to actually do a lot more, and it provides quick links for them for quick actions that you want them to do. And if we check from the delivery report side, we can see exactly that the Viber message was correctly delivered. So it's pretty similar to SMS. Now, if we actually get to the main part of the Omnichannel API, is that you can provide the failovers. So I have merged these two first examples, and I have told the API to first to try to send using Viber, and if this fails, try to send this with SMS. I have provided a different number that doesn't have a Viber account yet. So let's see how this behaves. As this is a different number from the one that I showed earlier, so this doesn't appear on the phone, but checking the delivery reports, we can see that the first Viber message, this failed. It said undelivered, and the phone number specified does not have Viber installed. So what this Omnichannel API does, it automatically sends an SMS, and we can see with the last delivery report that it was successfully delivered. So there's just a few seconds delay with this failover, but this is pretty regular with SMS. It just takes a few seconds to deliver. So I think this is pretty much covers all the different topics of the Omnichannel API, and we can give it back to Yuri.
Maybe one thing that I would still sort of barge in and point out is that I think that for everybody, the business to consumer messaging using Viber and other chat apps is only starting out. So businesses are making first pilot projects and moves using those. If you have any questions at all at any point, we have our team ready to answer all of them. Just simply consult how these channels might be useful to you. So just fire away. Have ideas, if you have suggestions for our roadmap as well. So which channels would you want us to integrate next, or just in general questions, how do different channels behave, technical or non-technical, fire away. We're ready. We're very happy to consult whichever questions you might have. Thanks.
Awesome. So it looks like we have one more question that came through. I would like to pass this one actually on to Janos. So Janos, we had a question talking about features. Does it work similarly with WhatsApp? So there are limitations when using this channel when it's ready?
Compared to WhatsApp, as WhatsApp currently doesn't have the public API like Viber does, so you can't actually use the WhatsApp's API. But if we compare the Viber to SMS, then it does have some limitations for the text, like the 1000 character limit. You have to limit the text on the buttons. You have some smaller limitations, but it's something that we can't really compare to WhatsApp right now.
Yeah, so I guess we'll know more about WhatsApp limitations once WhatsApp has their public API and we're able to launch it with ours. All right, awesome. So it sounds like we don't have any more questions. Thanks again for joining our webinar. We're going to publish this on our YouTube channel. It'll be up on our website as well. So if you want to go back through this or send it to anyone else in your organization, feel free to do that. But yeah, thanks again for joining. Lauri, Janos, thanks for running through the demo and giving us all this information. So I appreciate it. Hope everybody has a great afternoon and a great rest of their week and weekend.